Hello there, you're welcome to another tutorial on SC In this tutorial, you're going to learn 8 tips and tricks that can help improve your production process. Hit the subscribe button and let's get started. So, first of all, I'm going to show you how to use your pitch bend even when you don't have a MIDI close to you, or you don't have a MIDI, or you don't even know how to use a MIDI at all. Pitch bend can really help make your sounds more unique and realistic, or even more synthetic, depends on what your aim is. So I already have my chords played here. I have my chords played here. So let's listen to it and see how it sounds. So now I'm going to add the pitch bend. What I'm going to advise you should do is you create a new pattern so that you can have much more control over this. Then you open your VST. A lot of virtual instruments have pitch bend. Some you may need spend a little bit more time looking for it, but they typically have this is a pitch bend. This is how your sound is normally. Then this is what a pitch bend does to it. So we're going to see how to record it. So before you record, make sure you right click your record here. Make sure you select automation is selected, and then we're going to hit record, and then it's going to count, and then we'll listen. So let's listen and see. See, and you can always double click it to make adjustments. You can always extend. You can always undo with Control Alternate Z for multiple steps. So that's how you can use pitch bend for your MIDI without having a keyboard close to you. All right, so for tip number 2, I'm going to show you how to make your guitars, piano, Rhodes, or other instruments within this category sound more realistic. Typically, instruments that you can play with your fingers. I want to show you how to make it sound more realistic. So we're going to create a quick chord. Let's create a quick chord. Stretch it out. Let's create then this. Let's listen to it and see how it sounds. All right, so now let's make it more realistic. There are 2 ways you can do this. You can come here, make sure you select this by holding your Control or Command and sweeping across with your left click. Yeah, then you come here and you come to Tools, then you come to Strum, and you listen, and you can adjust this. You can see the notes moving in different positions already. You can also adjust the end as well. And you can have it move more freely. Or you can even make it more closer, depends on what you're trying to achieve. You can see that sounds more realistic. So if I were to reset it, compare, you can see. Another way is just to use the shortcuts command, alternate S, and you can get the same effect. So you can turn up the trigger head, and so you can like move forward or backward, depends on how you want it to move. and you get the same thing done. And you can click accept. Another thing again, you can also do it manually. You can maybe move some. You can move it manually as well. So it depends on what you prefer. So that's how to make your chords sound more realistic. This can work for guitars, this can work for pianos, this can work for organs, Rhodes, basically instruments you play with your fingers. Tip number three, I'm going to show you how to get perfectly cut samples when you render your samples. Sometimes when you render your samples in FL Studio, you can get something like this. Render and replace. You have this extension, and sometimes when you cut this, it may not sound like a perfect loop sometimes. So how to avoid this is, let's Control Alternate Z to leave this as whole. When you come here, right click, you come to render as audio clip. Then make sure you select the tail, this tail here. You have two options, either wrap remainder or cut remainder. Typically for melodies and chords, I prefer it to wrap remainder. Maybe for drums, you can leave it as cut remainder because drums having too much transient folded or towards the end can make the drum sound a bit funny. So you can leave your drums if you are sampling a drum loop, you are trying to render a drum loop, you can leave it as chord remainder. But for melodies and chords, I prefer it to wrap remainder. So let's go. Then if I drag this out, you can see perfect sample stays at the bars. You can also try this for drums as well. Render your drums and it's going to be perfect. And it's going to always save what you did last. Like you don't always have to go over it again and again and again. Let me show you. If I come here and I go to render and render audio clip, see, it's always that, and it works for every other VST you may load up to try that with. It's going to save like a constant feature while you progress in any other project file you may have as well. So tip number four, I'm going to show you. All right, so for tip number four, I'm going to show you how to have several arrangements of the same song in the same project. So let's say maybe you want the verse to start first, or you want the hook to start first. Instead of creating a separate project for it, I'm going to show you how you can have all of that in one project, and you can also render it in that same one project. So now this is our main arrangement. All right, so that's our beat. After the intro, we have the verse, then we have the bridge, then we have the hook. So you can select all of this and copy, or you can just clone and you can name it maybe idea 2. So now it's saved as idea 2. And then I can rearrange. Let's say I don't want my verse to start first. You can just sweep across, take everything out, then make sure all the parts you want is selected, and you maybe can get out of the way. Then maybe you want your chorus to start first, then you can bring your chorus in like this. And the changes you made here is not going to reflect in, you can see this is a different arrangement entirely. And you can have as many arrangements as you want. You can clone some more. You can even create a new arrangement. Just click add one and just say maybe new idea. So this is a blank slate, and you can still access all your sounds. You can still access, or sorry, you can still access all your sounds and create something new. It all depends on what you want to do, but you don't have to create new project all over again to or make duplicate project files. You can do everything in one single project. All right, so for tip number five, I'm going to show you how to add more bounce to your drums without playing anything else. So let's say you already have your drum pattern here. It could be in piano roll format, it could be your drum pad or wherever you have, but your drums are still here, yet to be converted to audio files. So let's say you have your drums here. So let's listen to these drums and see how it sound. So there's a cool feature in FL Studio called the swing. It has been here forever, but sometimes we tend to forget about the swing feature because it's been there for so long. So you can just swing it. You can see the bounce. Let's hear the original. Then the new one. So that can help you change the groove of your drum track. All right. All right, so for tip number six, I'm going to show you how to add more life to your drums without using reverb on every single channel, because you know reverb can easily replicate space, or rather simulate space. So we have our drum sound. Let's hear the beats in full first of all. Let's turn every channel on. All right, so now we're going to group everything to a single channel, well, except for the kick, of course. So we're going to, except for the kick and any bass heavy elements. So select an empty channel. If you have any empty channels in between, you can always come here, find an empty channel, hold your alternate key and left mouse key, and you push anything through. You can see pushing an empty channel close. So we'll select this, hold your control and shift to select. If you make a mistake, you can always deselect by clicking that same channel. You make sure your kick is not selected, and you click a channel. I'd like to give a space in between so that it will be easier for you to identify the channel. So you go to track routing, create sub mix. So let's name this drums. So all of these you can see is now routed, except for the kick, everything now routed into the drums. So now I can add a little bit of reverb. Since these are drums, I have to be careful with the kind of reverb I use. Reduce the decay a little. So that's how I can add reverb. This will save your CPU more space instead of adding reverb on every single thing. So this is going to take, like, everything will sound like it's in one room. You can always modify the amount of reverb you want. And another way you can also do this, when, let's say you mix, let me take this out. All right, so let's say this is your drum percussions. You can still do this here, and then maybe you can name this reverb so that you can have even more control over it. Then you can add your reverb. You can see, you can have even more control. And you can still edit it right here. So this is a simple way to save your resources on your CPU, especially if your CPU is not that heavy. You can just route your tracks and put everything in one common effect, like reverb. Reverb can be a common effect, and yeah. All right, so for tip number seven, I'm going to show you how to effectively and quickly sample your vocal chops. Now we already have our drum loop here with our melody loop, so let's listen to it quickly. All right, so now we're going to use a tool called Slice X. It's free in FL Studio. So Slice X, this is it. And then we'll just drag our vocal. Let's use that. So we'll create points for it to chop. Sometimes it chops automatically for you, but sometimes it doesn't. But if it doesn't, you can just click this icon here for it to create those regions for you. Then you double select a region again you want it. You can always readjust it later. And you come here again, select it, Then you come here again, you select. You can just mark out points and you can always readjust to your taste later on. Then you come here again. So let's assume we're okay with this. You can mark all the way you want. So let's assume we're okay with this. And you see it will create. You can take this out. So let's make sure you when you can use either your MIDI keyboard or your computer keyboard. When you use your computer keyboard, make sure you leave this interface. Make sure you come back to your channel rack so that your keyboard command doesn't affect the commands in Slice X. So let's see. See this triggers it. The longer you hold it, the more it sustains. The shorter you hold it, the less it sustains. So let's say we can sample it on our beat. And we can record it. So we can just create a new pattern. Come here. Make sure you're able to record MIDI. So hit your record. And then you can always readjust it in here. Just and that's how to sample. You can take this all out and you can even render it. Render and replace. And then you can pitch. All right, so that's how to quickly sample your vocal chops in FL Studio. All right, so the last but not the least tip is how to find hidden effects in FL Studio. Now, when FL Studio just came out up until FL 12, there were some really useful effects that were very light on your PC that you could use. But as they advanced from 12 and above, they took those effects off the main effects page here. So and how you can bring them back, you can come to more plugins and you can see Fruity Chorus. You can start them on Fruity Compressor. These are very useful because they're very light on your PC. And when you select them like this, you can add them into your catalog. And then when you press close, then you can see them all under your favorites. And that's how to just simply bring them in quickly. And there are many other ways you can do this. So you can also come to plugin database, come to effects. You can also get them here under maybe filters. You can get them under delay and reverb. And you can even see some new effects here as well. You can see these destructor plugins. But this is a brand new effect. It wasn't in FL Studio before. So this is a brand new effect. All of this also under brand new effects as well. So you can always get brand new effects when you just come here, and also generators as well. Come to drum, you see different drum. So this is one of the ways you can get effects that are sometimes new or maybe sometimes missing from your drop down menu here. All right, so I hope this video was helpful, and if it was, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up so that other people who need these tips can find it as well. Cheers.